Welcome to Heart Echo Channel, where every story whispers to the deepest corners of the soul. Snow fell softly across the city the week before Christmas, turning every rooftop into a canvas of white. The streets glowed in warm colors: red, gold, and green, while the laughter of families drifted through the air. But on a quiet sidewalk, near a shuttered bakery, two small children sat, forgotten by the world. Lucas, just 6 years old, held his 3-year-old sister Ellie close, shielding her from the bitter winter wind. His coat clung to him, thin and soaked. Ellie's feet were swollen, her shoes wet, and she could no longer walk. They had been searching for their mother for 2 long days. Their mom, Mara, had left to buy bread one night and simply never returned. Lucas waited. He sang to Ellie. He kept her calm, but when the room grew colder and no footsteps returned, he knew he had to search. They went from the bus stop to the church steps, to the alley behind the dollar store, whispering "Mama," into the empty, cold spaces. That morning, after hours of walking, Lucas lifted Ellie into his arms and made the hardest walk of his life through the falling snow, toward the Haven City shelter. His tiny arms trembled with the effort. Ellie's breath was shallow against his neck. Inside the shelter, volunteers were serving hot soup, and there, ladling food into paper cups, stood Robert Hale. At 38, he was the CEO of Haven, a quiet man who had lost more than he ever spoke about. Lucas stepped forward, his voice cracking with exhaustion. "Sir, my sister can't walk. Can we stay with you?" For a moment, Robert froze. In the little boy's trembling voice, he heard something painfully familiar. Same fear he once carried as a young, single father. He knelt down, lifted Ellie gently into his arms, and placed a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "You're safe now," he said softly. "Both of you." Outside, the snow swirled in a chaotic dance, but inside, a fragile hope had begun to bloom. Doctors at the shelter said Ellie had a high fever and Lucas was severely dehydrated. Child Services reported there was no space available. Robert didn't hesitate. He took them home. In his warm, quiet house, his 9-year-old daughter, Lily, peeked from the stairs. When she saw the 2 siblings shivering in their damp clothes, she didn't ask a single question. She simply said, "They can have my bed. I'll sleep with Daddy." That night, Lucas sipped warm milk slowly, savoring each drop like it was magic. Ellie slept peacefully for the first time in days. Robert tucked him in, pulled a blanket over Lucas, and whispered, "You're safe. Rest." But while the children slept, the truth was unfolding across town. In a hospital bed lay Marin conscious. She was suffering from exhaustion, hypoglycemia, and an injury from a bad fall. An elderly flower vendor had found her collapsed in the rain. The world had separated a family, and Tay didn't he even know they were breathing under the same sky. In the days that followed, Robert searched tirelessly through hospital databases. He saw the fear buried behind Lucas's polite, brave smile. He heard the tremble in the boy's voice when he said, "If my mom comes back, please don't be mad at her. She didn't leave us. She just got lost." Then, one morning, Robert received a blurry security photo of an unidentified woman. Blonde hair, a soaked coat. He printed it and placed it gently before Lucas. "Son, is this your mother?" Lucas froze. His small fingers shook as he reached for the paper. "That's her. Her coat. The buttons." Tears filled his eyes for the first time in days. They drove through the falling snow to the hospital. Lucas held his mother's scarf tightly in his hands, whispering, "I kept Ellie safe. Mama, I did what you said." In the hospital room, he placed the worn scarf over Mara's chest and whispered, "You can wake up now. Please. We're right here." Hours passed. Then morning came, and Mara stirred. She opened her eyes to find her son's head resting beside her hand. His small fingers gripped her palm, as if he'd held on through storms for this moment alone. "Mama," he whispered, his voice thick with sleep and hope. Her tears came before her voice could. "Lucas, baby, I came back too late." He shook his head. "You didn't leave us," he replied, his voice firm with a child's unwavering faith. "You just fell asleep for too long." When Robert saw mother and son reunited, he stepped outside quietly. His heart tightened with something he hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe it was healing, maybe longing, maybe it was love being reborn. Mara recovered slowly, and Robert offered her something more than just charity. He offered her dignity, a job, housing in Haven's new program for single mothers, a chance to rebuild her life from the ground up. One afternoon, Lily hugged Mara and said, "You're Ellie's mom, but you can be my mom too, if you want." Mara cried silently, burying her face in the little girl's hair. In the weeks that followed, Lucas learned to smile without fear. Ellie followed Robert everywhere like a tiny, devoted shadow. Mara started helping at the shelter kitchen, becoming the source of warmth she once desperately sought there. Late, one quiet evening, Robert came home to find Lucas asleep at the table, a pencil still in his hand, a drawing of a family in front of him. Mara stood in the kitchen warming milk, her hair tied back, her expression soft and peaceful. Their eyes met across the room. Nothing needed to be said. Two broken worlds had collided, and instead of shattering, they had built a bridge. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't planned. But it was real. And on Christmas morning, exactly 1 month after two cold, lost children approached a shelter door, Robert, Mara, Lily, Lucas, and Ellie stood together under a small pine tree decorated with handmade stars. They weren't strangers. They weren't a charity case. They were something that looked and felt a lot like family. And in the glow of the soft lights, with snow falling gently outside the window, the world finally made sense again. Thank you for watching Heart Echo Channel, where every story reminds us that no matter how lost we feel, love still finds its way home. Please follow for more stories that touch the soul.